Welcome to my podcast, Love and Courageous. I'm your host, Demetris. And on today's episode, I'll be speaking about the Diddy Trial. So, P. Diddy, who is a rapper and record producer, has been accused of sex trafficking by force, transportation to engage in prostitution, and racketeering. He is also being accused of being a ringleader of an alleged enterprise that abused, threatened, and coerced women to prolong drug-fueled sexual orgies with male prostitutes, which he called freak-offs, and then threatened them into silence. Now, P. Diddy has said that all the sex was consensual, and that sometimes his relationships did involve domestic violence, but he wasn't engaged in trafficking. P. Diddy is facing 5 charges. If he is found guilty for any one of these, this is how much time he will spend behind bars. So, 1 count is for racketeering conspiracy, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison if he is found guilty. 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison and a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years in prison. 2 counts transportation to engage in prostitution, which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Now, P. Diddy has denied all the allegations that are against him. There are a few people that testify in this case that I will be discussing. So Cassie is definitely one of the most important ones. Kid Cudi, Danny Kane singer, Don Richards, Cassie's mother, Regina Ventura, a former dancer, and more. Now, Cassie Ventura, who said she was coerced into depraved sex acts with male prostitutes and beaten and blackmailed by P. Diddy, went into detail about the sex acts in her testimony. She claimed she was plied with booze and drugs and forced to perform in the orgies known as freak-offs, along with male escorts. She said in one alleged instance where a male escort urinated in her mouth at P. Diddy's request. She said, I quote, "Within the first year of our relationship, Sean proposed to me this idea, this sexual encounter that he called voyeurism, where he watched me in sexual activity with a third party, specifically another man. It entails the hiring of an escort and setting up this experience so that I could perform for Sean. It involves Sean being able to watch me with the other person and actually direct us on what we were doing sexually." She said, I quote, "Sometimes he himself, who is P. Diddy, or he would have the escort urinate on me. There was no conversation. It was a turn on for him, so it happened." And she was asking court if she wanted this, and she said no, saying that it was humiliating, it was disgusting, it was too much, overwhelming. She even said that she was choked and that she was laid on the floor in a position where it wasn't easy for her to get out of. In court, she was asked if she was able to ask the escort to stop. And she said, I quote, "I put my hands up and Sean saw and told him to stop. Only thing I could do, laying on the floor. Too much urine in my mouth." They asked her, did she want Sean to urinate on her? And she replied and said, "I didn't want anybody to urinate on me. I was squeamish immediately and high in the moment with this man, so that's what happened." She also said in her testimony that she did not want to participate in the freak-offs, and her first time was no different. She said, I quote, "I remember my stomach falling to my butt, the nervousness and confusion on that moment. I had just turned 22. I didn't have a concept of how that would be a turn on, but I also felt a sense of responsibility with him sharing something like that with me. I was confused, nervous, but also loved him very much and wanted to make him happy." Now, Cassie went into full detail of the freak-offs and explaining the typical pattern that led into the freak-offs. She said that it would begin with oral and touching and then progress through oral sex to full intercourse. She said, I quote, "First sex act, masturbating and looking at each other. I'll be looking at the escort and they will be looking at me. I will describe what I saw in detail. That is what turned P. Diddy on, his fantasy. It was always awkward. Sitting describing someone's penis to another male was pretty awkward and humiliating, but eventually it became normal. It will lead to intercourse." She also said that sometimes both the escort and P. Diddy will have sex with her But other times, P. Diddy would just watch. She continued by saying, I quote, "If I was having intercourse with an escort, Sean would walk up and have me give him oral sex." And she was asked if the escorts ejaculated, and she said, I quote, "Yes, usually when it was okay for them per Sean. But if they did, then Sean and I would go into the next room and he want me to put the semen on his body, usually on his chest and on his nipples. And if escorts ejaculated without being given permission by Combs, they were paid less." There was one session where P. Diddy choreographed Cassie getting into a pool of baby oil at a hotel in Beverly Hills in a full outfit that was purchased from a sex shop in Hills. She said she didn't want to do it, especially in a hotel room, but that she couldn't say no because it would have been all bad. She also alleged that the sessions were fueled by a cocktail of booze and drugs. She said, I quote, "They became almost weekly. It became dependent on where we were, weekly for a consistent amount of years. The drugs honestly helped. Ecstasy and Molly. We started to other drugs like cocaine later on." The alleged abuse was not just sexual, but physical and psychological too. At certain times, I knew it wasn't even about me. The next thing, I was getting hit in the face. If I was smiling at him the way he wanted, I just looked a certain way he didn't like. Maybe I was a brat or something. He would let me know I need to fix my face or wash my mouth. Psychological was every day. Not know what he was going to be when he woke up that day, that was a lot. Someone constantly telling you who to be. During Cassie's testimony, she started to talk about the video that went viral of Diddy assaulting her. She said, I quote, "I'm not sure what happened. I got hit by Sean and had a black eye. And at that point, all I could think about was getting out of there safely. I had my premiere and didn't want to mess it up. I just knew I had to get out. I grabbed my stuff and ran out as fast as I could. I made it to the elevators, got my sneakers on. The next thing, I was just thrown to the ground. It was really fast. I ran out without any shoes. It was faster. Sean grabbed me by the back of my neck and threw me to the ground. There was a vase with flowers in it. I remember it coming towards me. I didn't get hit. I remember it hitting the wall. He was yelling at me and threw it at me." She also told the court that her friend, Carrie Morgan, called the cops after seeing the state she was in, prompting a flurry of angry texts from P. Diddy. There were text messages sent between Cassie and P. Diddy that were shown in court. One of the text messages that Cassie sent to P. Diddy said, I quote, "I have a premiere for the biggest thing I ever done in my life on Monday. You are sick for thinking it's okay to do what you done. Please stay far away from me." Then P. Diddy replied, stating that he was about to be arrested and encouraged her to answer his frenzy calls. "If you don't pick up, you'll never hear my voice again. Damn, I never ignored your calls." But when the cops arrived, Cassie testified that she was too afraid to talk to them. She said, "I answered a couple questions, but when they wanted me to say who I was talking about, I wouldn't, so they left." She said in that moment that she did not want to hurt P. Diddy that way. Just too much going on, and it was a lot for her in that moment, saying that she wasn't ready. She even said later on her testimony that she stopped fighting back during the alleged assaults at the risk of angering P. Diddy. She said, "I learned it could escalate the fight more and make it worse for myself. Sometimes it would slow him down and he would stop. But at times it would make him more violent, make him stronger, want to push me harder." She also described another altercation between her and P. Diddy that left her with a deep gash that required surgical treatment after allegedly being attacked by P. Diddy after he found her asleep on the sofa. She said when P. Diddy came in, she was asleep and it was commotion, him yelling at us. She said Deontay and Mia, who were her friends, jumped on Sean's back because he was trying to attack me. We ended up in the living room into the master bedroom. They were just jumping on his back. When he threw me down, I cut my eyebrow on the corner of my bed. It was a Sunday, so nothing was open. Sean had security bring me to a plastic surgeon office to suture it. She then claimed that P. Diddy forced her to go to the Hamptons where it was a freak-off that was taking place, with a escort whose name is Dave. She said at the time we were taking GHB, which is a drug. On G, you can go into a G hole, and I blacked out. I woke up nude in the shower, and Dave and Sean were freaking out outside the bath. During the trial, Cassie was asked who reached out to the escorts, and Cassie said she would be the one. She said, based on who Sean is, I didn't want to put him in that position. It was expected of me. And Cassie was also questioned about the drugs that were being used during the freak-offs. There was a text message that was shown in court where P. Diddy texted Cassie stating, I quote, "You know we have to have a proper FO without no K. I need to get it out my head. I hate K. So let me know when." And Cassie would then ask what was Sean saying about K. And Cassie replied and said that it took time out of the freak-off. It was my preferred drug because it was very dissociative, and you can go into something called a K-hole when you're not present in the moment. You're just high and not doing any actions. Cassie even told the courts that P. Diddy requests for freak-offs were relentless and even led to him derailing plans that he made for her 29th birthday. She said she wanted to go to this club called Blonde Dragon and do karaoke with her friends. She said after dinner they were starting to head towards that way, but P. Diddy let her know that he wanted to have a freak off, and she was telling him not right now because she wanted to celebrate her birthday. They ended up getting to Blonde Dragon, but he kept pulling her away from her friends, so she left. She stated, "I told him I wanted to stay out and celebrate with my friends. I just didn't want to have the burden of doing that at the end of the night. He pulled me out so many times I gave up and went and had a freak off." She also said that P. Diddy used videos of the orgies to blackmail her into performing more. She said that P. Diddy would mention the videos when he was angry about something or really wanted me to fear. When he was upset about something, it was a pretty common thing. One time I dated someone else and that was what it was all about. "I'm going to put out 2 embarrassing videos of you." He just wanted to hurt me. She said that P. Diddy was going to release them and embarrass her and put her career in jeopardy. That he would be mad enough to put them out and then I would have to answer to my mother. She said that she feared for her career and she feared for her family. Just embarrassing, and it's horrible and disgusting. No one should do that to anyone. She even said that she was ashamed and that it wasn't supposed to be on those videos, and said that she didn't want to be in them. Cassie also talked about other domestic violence incidents that has happened allegedly during their 10-year relationship. She said one time at the Cannes Film Festival, P. Diddy allegedly kicked her off a yacht and withheld her possessions, including her passport. She said that he blackmailed her with the videos on the way back to New York. She said, "We hadn't spoken since the incident he kicked me off the boat. While sitting together, he would grab my leg and squeeze my thighs as tightly as he could. I was wearing a beaded dress, so it was really painful. We flew on a commercial flight to New York. I had a seat that I traded with someone else. I didn't want to sit next to Sean, and he switched up with the person. We ended up riding together. He pulled up videos, freak-off videos. I thought I deleted them. He was playing them for me on a flight back to New York." When Cassie was asked how that incident left her feeling, she said, "Couldn't have felt worse. Also scared. I just had got my passport back. I felt trapped." She also went into detail about the physical toll the freak-offs took on her body. She said she had a lot of stomach aches, gastrointestinal issues from taking drugs. Also, she got frequent UTIs. When they were having frequent freak-offs, sometimes they were back to back. She said she couldn't get rid of it, and she was doing the freak-offs with an infection. She said that Cipro, which is an antibiotic drug, didn't even work anymore, and that she would occasionally get sores on her tongue from freak-offs from the substances and just friction in her mouth, from oral sex, also from having her mouth on things such as oil, Astroglide, and lubricants. After each sex session, she explained that she felt tired, itchy, and really dehydrated because she was up for so long and not really eating much, and that she just felt empty. And there was another time that she alleged that P. Diddy attacked her, following a night at an LA club. She said the altercation began after P. Diddy called her a slut or a bitch, and she drunkenly punched him in the back of his car. She said his whole demeanor just switched over, his eyes went black. We were in an Escalade, but the two sitting in the middle. We had a friend following us back to the house. After she punched him, she said he attacked her and that she was underneath the back seat trying to cover her face. She continued by saying that Sean was stumping on her face with his foot. The ride back to the house was short, but the whole ride was a fight until they arrived. She said that she never experienced anything like that where she was getting badly beaten. The car was going back to Sean's home that he was renting. And she said she took off running and started running down the street, but security caught up with her and brought her back to the house. She eventually saw her face and said that she didn't even look like herself, that her face was just filled with knots and bleeding. She said she thinks she was vomiting when P. Diddy came in, and the person he switched over to was now gone and freaking out at the sight of it. And she said that she fled to the London hotel to recuperate from her injuries. It was another incident that she said took place following a party at Prince's house, which ended up in the fight. She said that P. Diddy beat her up and he was throwing luggage at her, calling her all kinds of names that left her with bruises on her head. She also said that P. Diddy became violent after he discovered that Cassie was dating Kid Cudi. She said, I remember him pulling a wine bottle opener between his fingers and lunging at me. I was blacking out, super angry, and I got out of there. She fled to Kid Cudi's home, but eventually returned to P. Diddy so they could talk. She said when she was leaving that he kicked her in the back on the way out, so she had a big bruise on her back. She said, I fell to the floor and left. I had bruises in other places on my body. I remember that one because he kicked me with the bottom of his foot in my back. She also alleged that P. Diddy threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car. She said, I quote, he mentioned that when we were out of the country that P. Diddy's car would be blown up. She eventually decided to break up with Kid Cudi over fears for both of their safety. There was 2 other domestic violence incidents that Cassie alleged that has happened. One in Jamaica 2013 and another one in September 2015 at an after party at P. Diddy's home. She said she was talking to a manager and P. Diddy tapped on her and told her to come to the next room, and he beat her up in that room. She said he punched me, kicked me. I was trying to run away. I remember going to the toilet and I ended up under the toilet trying to cover myself while he was trying to kick me. She claimed P. Diddy told her to put on more makeup to hide her injuries from his son. She said these are the words that came out of P. Diddy's mouth. I quote, his son shouldn't see me like that. I should put more makeup on. He can't see the bruises your face. And she also alleged that P. Diddy raped her following the end of their relationship in 2018. She said, I quote, he just eyes black, wasn't himself, laughing. All the things that were happening before were not there. Just somebody taking something from you without. She said that she continued to cry, but P. Diddy allegedly continued. She said he continued and finished and ejaculated inside of her. He got up and left. She said that how the trauma of what she has been through led her to suicidal thoughts. She said, I quote, I didn't want to be alive anymore at that point. I was shooting a video with another music artist and kept having these horrible flashbacks. I went home and it was super late. My kids were asleep and I remember telling him, who is her husband, you can do this without me. You don't need me anymore. I couldn't take the pain I was in anymore. So I tried to walk out the front door into traffic and my husband would not let me. She said that she settled a civil suit with P. Diddy for $20 million last year in 24 hours, but explained that she had decided to testify. She said, I can't carry this anymore. I can't carry the shame, the guilt, the way I was guided to treat people like they were disposable. What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. I'm here to do the right thing. So even though Cassie said that she felt compelled to participate in the freak-off to keep P. Diddy happy, there were some text messages that P. Diddy team wanted to pinpoint out and had Cassie read these messages out loud. So in these text messages, it appears that Cassie seemed excited about the sexual encounters. So one message was back in August of 2009. P. Diddy asked when Cassie wanted the next encounter to be, and she replied, "I'm always ready to freak off." 2 days later, Cassie sent an explicit message, and he replied in eager anticipation. She responded, "Me too, I just want it to be uncontrollable." Later on that same year, Cassie sent P. Diddy messages that she was frustrated with the state of their relationship and needed something more from him than sex. And there was also a text message that happened in July of 2013 where Cassie wrote to P. Diddy saying, "Wish we could have FO before you left." And another text message in 2017, she sent to P. Diddy saying, "I love our FOs when we both want it." Now, when Cassie was questioned about this, she said that she would say loving FOs were just words at that point. And she complained that at one point that jurors weren't hearing the full context of the messages the defense was highlighting, saying there's a lot we skipped over. P. Diddy team also raised instances of Cassie anger with P. Diddy and Cassie admitting that she would be jealous over the attention that P. Diddy would give other women. Cassie said that P. Diddy didn't want her seeing anyone else, but the same rules did not apply to him. She also testified that after a few years with P. Diddy, she longed to be a bigger part of his life, but he wouldn't let her in. Another person that took the stand was Cassie's mother, Regina Ventura. Regina Ventura testified that her family had to pay P. Diddy $20,000 out of concern for her daughter's safety due to threats P. Diddy allegedly made while Cassie was dating Kid Cudi. On May the 20th, Regina Ventura testified that back in 2011, her family took a home equity loan to pay P. Diddy the money. P. Diddy had allegedly threatened to release explicit videos of Cassie after discovering she was dating Kid Cudi. Regina Ventura said, I quote, "I was physically sick. I did not understand it. The sex tape threw me. He was trying to hurt my daughter." P. Diddy allegedly demanded $20,000 for the footage, claiming he was angry about the money he had spent on Cassie while she was dating someone else. Regina Ventura said, "We took a home equity loan and that was the only way we could get the money." She also said that P. Diddy told her that she needed to wire the money. She wired the funds to P. Diddy's company and she said the money came back 4 to 5 days later. Another person that testified was Sheree Hayes, an exotic dancer who's also called the Punisher. He testified about his first meeting with P. Diddy and Cassie. He was specifically told not to acknowledge the man in the room, and he said P. Diddy wore a veil over his face. The incident took place at a hotel room at the Trump Tower, where Cassie greeted him at the door wearing a bathrobe. He said inside the room the furniture was covered in sheets and there were little bowls on the floor with bottles of baby oil. He described 8 to 12 encounters he allegedly had with Cassie while P. Diddy watched and gave directions. The directions included adjusting candles and instructing the two to have sex. Sometimes Cassie would wince or sign at the mogul's suggestions. Other times she would look to P. Diddy for consent for certain activities. Another person that testified was Danielle Phillip, a escort. He took the stand on May the 12th and said that he was hired to have sex with Cassie at the Gramercy Park Hotel in Manhattan while P. Diddy was in the room. He said at one point he overheard P. Diddy hit Cassie and testify about the aftermath. He said, I quote, "She was shaking uncontrollably, obviously afraid, and we started talking for a while before we ended up kissing each other." Now, P. Diddy team asked Phillip, was Cassie drunk or high during the sex? And he said no. And they asked another question, saying, is it fair to say she was in complete control of everything she did? He replied and said, I cannot say that. On May the 16th, Don Richard testified, saying that she witnessed P. Diddy attack Cassie as she was making eggs in a kitchen. in P. Diddy Los Angeles home. She said, I quote, "He came downstairs screaming, belligerent. P. Diddy asked where his eggs were and yelled that Cassie never gets anything right. P. Diddy grabbed the skillet Cassie was cooking it and tried to hit her with it. The skillet didn't seem to hit Cassie fully because Cassie went into the fetal position. P. Diddy then grabbed Cassie's hair and dragged her upstairs. And Don Richard said she heard glass breaking and yelling. P. Diddy later told Don Richard what she saw was passion and that Cassie was okay. She said, I quote, "Where he comes from, people go missing if they talk." But Don Richard is also suing P. Diddy, a lawsuit that she filed back in September. She alleged abusive behavior during her time with both Danny Kane and Diddy. She is suing Diddy on 21 counts of sexual assault and battery, sex trafficking, gender discrimination, copyright infringement. She claimed the producer stole her work, withheld payment, and subjected her to inhumane working conditions, which included assault, groping, and false imprisonment throughout their association together. She accused the rapper of promising to advance her career in exchange for favors on the set of Making the Band back in 2005. According to Don Richard, P. Diddy belittled and harassed the female contestants during filming. She said once the group was assembled, the labor founder regularly deprived them of sleep and meals, referred to them derogatorily, and denigrated their physical appearances, telling Don Richard she was too skinny and needed to do something about her face. She also recalled about an incident that happened during rehearsals in New York for P. Diddy. Dirty Money's Saturday Night Live performances back in 2010, she claimed that she and Harper were denied food and rest. Enraged and screaming at the pair for being late, Richard alleged that P. Diddy nearly hit her before she was escorted away by a bodyguard. When Harper ran after her, both were locked inside a car without door handles. She also claimed that she used Harper's phone to call her father, but Harper was later removed, leaving Don Richard alone in the locked car for 2 hours. It was only after her father arrived from Baltimore that she got out. She also claimed that she had witnessed P. Diddy's party behavior, including bringing in underage girls to attend days-long drug-fueled parties at his homes in New York and Miami, where him and his guests performed sexual acts on them. The last person that I want to talk about is Kid Cudi, who took the stand on May the 22nd. Kid Cudi alleged that P. Diddy broke into his home and messed with his dog. He also spoke about discovering that his car was on fire back in 2012 after Cassie alleged earlier in the trial that P. Diddy threatened to blow up P. Diddy's car. Cassie and Kid Cudi dated back in 2011 when her and P. Diddy was on a break. Kid Cudi said that he received a call from Cassie, who was nervous and scared, back in December of 2011, telling him that P. Diddy had found out about their relationship. Later on in that day, Kid Cudi said Capricorn Clark, who is P. Diddy's former assistant, called him to let him know that P. Diddy was inside his home. P. Diddy said he drove to his house and was calling P. Diddy on the way, asking if he was inside. Kid Cudi claimed that P. Diddy sounded calm and told him that he was waiting for him to arrive because he wanted to talk. But when Kid Cudi got home, he said that nobody was inside, but gifts that he had received from Chanel had been opened, and his dog was locked up in the bathroom. And he said he normally let his dog roam around in the house. Afterwards, he got back in his car and called P. Diddy, wanting to confront him. And P. Diddy said that he was willing to meet up. But eventually, Kid Cudi reconsidered the gravity of the situation and decided against it. Instead, he decided to call the cops and made a report. He then said P. Diddy later texted him a few times saying he wanted to get to the bottom of things. And Kid Cudi replied and said, "You broke into my house. You messed with my dog. I don't really want to talk to you." But P. Diddy, defense lawyer, maintained that Kid Cudi left his door unlocked and there was no forced entry or broken furniture. Kid Cudi said that Cassie also told him that P. Diddy would hit her and sometimes kick her. He admitted that he was in love with Cassie, but they ended things. because of the drama was getting out of hand. And he just wanted to give it some space for his own safety and for hers. And he was asked why he had safety concerns. Kid Cudi responded and said, I quote, because I knew Sean Combs was violent. Earlier when I mentioned that Cassie said that P. Diddy threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car, the car was actually blown up. On May the 22nd, back in January 2012, Kid Cudi received a phone call that his car was on fire. And there were images to show his car. The images were shown to the jurors. Kid Cudi also explained that he had a meeting with P. Diddy and Cassie at a private members club known as Soho House after discovering his car had exploded. But P. Diddy said that he had no knowledge of the damage. Kid Cudi said at the end of the meeting, they stood and shook hands. Cudi asked Combs, what are we going to do about my car? And he said P. Diddy gave him a very cold stare and said, I don't know what you're talking about. But Kid Cudi thought that P. Diddy was lying but let it go and said there were no more episodes at his home. But a few years later, P. Diddy apologized for everything when they ran into each other at a hotel. Now that is all that I have about the case so far. But however, the case, it is supposed to last up to 2 months or even longer. Now, I personally do not see where the sex trafficking is coming from because the first week, the trial was very weak. Like, I felt like Cassie didn't really make herself look good when they showed the text messages basically saying that she's excited about the freak-offs. That don't make you look innocent because you have to realize that you are saying this man forced you. So with those text messages, how's the jury gonna look at it? That's my thing because, I mean, we all know that he has been physically abusing her. We saw the video footage. But however, people need to be aware and educate themselves on domestic violent relationships. If you have not, please watch documentaries. Trust me. People don't realize, but domestic violence is not just physical. It's not just emotional. It can be sexual as well. That's the thing that people don't realize. You have so many people out here that have been in an abusive relationship that ends up being raped by their partner. Watch documentaries. And people be like, oh, why did Cassie say? Sweetheart, she's not the only one. Trust me. You have so many women that have been beaten up into a hospital, raped by their own partner, and they do not leave. They do not. It's crazy and it's sad, but a lot of them do not. And the only thing about this is that she said that, you know, he raped her, but however, it's just words. That's the bad part about it because she did not report it, which a lot of women do not report being raped. And domestic violence, and even outside domestic violence, some women that be getting date rape, like some of them don't even report it. So that's the sad part about it. Prostitutes get raped. They don't report it, and you want to know why? Because a lot of times they feel like they're not going to win the case because they're a prostitute. You have so many people out here that do not report it. That is the sad part about it. She did not report it. So it's okay. At this point, it's just words. We don't have the evidence. But this is where it comes with knowledge. Knowledge is power, and people have to educate themselves on domestic violence, on exactly what happens when people are in an abusive relationship. It's not just physical. It's more than that. And I feel like her team is going to have to bring it. I feel like they're relying on that video. But that video is not going to get her to win this case. Because he is being charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, which we got that now. But he is being charged with sex trafficking. You have to prove that. If these people in that court do not see where he was sex trafficking her, this boy might just get off. So her team is going to have to bring it. I hope they not just relying on that dang on video thing that's going to convince everybody, oh, he's dangerous. Sweetheart, That's not going to convince people because that was just domestic violence. That was just him putting his hands on her. That was it. It didn't show sex trafficking. So you need to show what he is being charged for. He's not being charged with domestic violence. But another thing I want people to keep in mind is the age difference. So she was 19 when she met P. Diddy. P. Diddy was in his 30s. Sweetheart, that is grown. That's another thing that people need to think about. The people in the courtroom also, they need to think about that. Okay, let's think about the age gap here. 17-year age gap. She was 19. You don't think he groomed her? But like I said, I'm not in the courtroom, so I already know P. Diddy is guilty. But however, at the same time, I understand that you need to see the evidence of what he is being charged with. But not only that, this is one thing I will say about P. Diddy. There has been things that has been spoken out about P. Diddy years ago. Not only that, but when he shot that person at the nightclub when he was with J-Lo and paid that man to take the blame so he wouldn't have to go to prison. So here's the thing about P. Diddy. P. Diddy liked to pay people to do his dirty work. And I'm like, okay, I understand that he ain't being charged with what happened, back in the day. But can we at least look at the other things that this man has done to be like, okay, you know what? I mean, I'm pretty sure he's guilty. But like I said, I understand you got to have the facts. But it's just the history of this man. Like, also when it comes to Kim Porter. PB talking about Kim Porter. And I'll be sure even said that she wasn't sick. So that's the one thing that he definitely needs to be investigated on. But of course, they not going to make that a case. So I feel like here's the thing with this. If P. Diddy is found guilty, not only does Cassie get justice, but also the things that he has done years before. Like I said, the trial is supposed to last for at least 2 months or more. So in the next upcoming weeks, we'll see if they have proof of the sex trafficking. But that is all for today. And for my next episode, I'll be speaking about Holly and DDG. Holly did file a restraining order against her ex. So thank you everyone for listening to my podcast, and I hope you all have a lovely day.